Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and we are brought to you by Fantrax. Go to rotowire.com/pod right now if you aren't already subscribed to our RotoWire baseball content. Just got a ton of injury news going up on the site every day, job battle news going up on the site every day, lots of great articles. But on the podcast today, I've got the great Jeff Zimmerman with me. Jeff is the co-author of The Process, which was originally published in 2019 with Tanner Bell. But there's a 2025 edition that we're going to discuss here with some really valuable studies that have been compiled into the appendixes. And then Jeff also does the Launch Angle podcast and Mining the News over at Fangraphs. So great to have Jeff on the show. Jeff, thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
Thanks for letting me join. I'm stuck inside. This I don't know where you're not where this disaster is, but my God, it's like, we have a high of 6 today. And it's just a good day to be potting.
It's been cold enough that when I take my dog for a walk, I can tell his paws are cold when they hit the ground. So it's very cold where I am. But we're inside today, thankfully. Yeah. So one of the studies that I wanted to talk about with you, Jeff, from that 2025 version of The Process. I mean, The Process is the gold standard of fantasy baseball books. You will actually get better at fantasy baseball if you read and implement the stuff you read in The Process. So everyone should have that. But the 2025 edition, you look back at the injury grades that there's kind of like a secret sauce, but you come up with an injury grade for each starting pitcher. Those get featured in Eno Sarris's starting pitcher ranks on The Athletic. And it looks to me like the grades worked pretty well this past year. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about how that all played out?
Yeah, I was kind of, I wouldn't say disappointed when I first looked at it, because I looked at between the A grades and the F grades. The F grades outperformed almost C and D. It was kind of a weird thing. And when I started looking into them, I found a couple of reasons why. But the big thing was it found the healthy guys. And actually some of the inputs are provided later in the index. I show why, the different arm injuries that are provided and so forth. But the big change I found, and it was I found it with Tarek Skubal, was if a guy threw 80 innings in the previous season, they were their health was a lot better if they threw those in the second half than the first half. It depended how they were distributed. And once I kind of made that change and looked back at it, my results were a little bit better. So I'm hoping this year, just with that one kind of single change, stuff will be better. But no, it was just just trying to get that A grade and trying to get a little bit more differentiation. But those guys that did have that A grade, 60% had over 150 innings, while kind of the rest of the group was closer to 40%. And then the other thing is very few of those guys even had, of those A grades, about 10% had fewer than 100 innings, which you're with pitchers, it's no one knows. But if you can just get the A grades that way and get 10 of those guys, only one of them on average will, have fewer than 100 innings. So it's kind of you don't know who, but as long as you start getting enough healthy pitchers and hoping for those innings, then hopefully in the aggregate, you'll have enough pitching for the season.
And so with that adjustment you made where you're looking at the players like Tariq Skubal, where it was a smaller amount of injuries, but they all came in the second half. Then you kind of looked at how if you had implemented those changes for last year, it boosts the grades a little bit. And that new formula is what goes into the current grades that are up on Eno's pitching rankings right now, right?
Correct. Yeah. And the one thing, going back and looking at him historically, this year, I think our top guy, I had a trying to give him like 100% grade is kind of what Eno wanted it at. So after talking to him, it kind of changes every year what he wants, but this year, like that's what we kind of agreed upon was just kind of like an ABC, but instead of just having the 5 categories, just giving it an overall number. Madison Bumgarner was just like destroying everything. He was just like so healthy for so many years, through so many innings. This wasn't hurt. He did it at a young age. He didn't throw hard. It was just like, well, you just broke everything. But it's kind of like you have to have some of those guys. But he was this year, Logan Webb was our top guy. Like he's just been consistently throwing a ton of innings. He doesn't have the higher velocity that is a little bit more. The biggest difference is if you've been healthy, you're most likely to stay healthy. If you've been hurt, you're most likely to stay hurt. There's a few other factors that I found have worked their ways in, and they just don't go as much. But a lot of people seem to be caught on the velocity bit. And if you do throw harder, there is a chance that you're going to have more injuries, but it's not as much as if you were healthy the last 2 seasons. You're more likely to be healthy the 3rd season.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask, but yeah, like Logan Webb, just kind of going through the pictures that, because in the appendix, you have all the top grades, all the bottom grades. So yeah, Logan Webb got a 98% grade, JP Sears, Logan Gilbert, Bailey Ober, Jose Barrios, George Kirby, Corbin Burns, Brandon Pfaadt, Mitch Keller, Brady Singer. Those are the best of the best in terms of the health grades. And like Logan Gilbert is pretty much the main one of those guys I'd be looking at the velocity of, just because it's been kind of ticking up. But like Kirby and Burns, I feel like they're more kind of in a steady range. Am I misremembering? I know you've got the velocities here, like the previous fastball velocity. I feel like Gilbert's past the 95.7 here. But it doesn't sound like you would be not taking Logan Gilbert in like the 30, 31 like turn, if he's sitting there just because of that velocity.
No, it's just I know like some people have kind of been, they've that top 10 throwers are that way, or velocity guys have been like hurt or recently. I'm trying to find the weighting. I don't think it's that much. I think it's around like 5% of the total health grade. But just like since he has been that way, but it's kind of those guys that really push it up seem to seem to like more likely get hurt, and then they start bringing up the other factors, and it just kind of spirals down from there. So, yeah, just looking back, it's really there's going to be players that throw hard and stay healthy. There's going to be a percentage of them. It's just less likely, there's just a smaller percentage. And that's kind of what we're dealing with. It's kind of one of the tougher things where it's like, oh, is he going to get hurt or not? We have no clue. Mm-hmm. Chris Sale made it through last year. I think if anyone, well, he actually until right at the end, and who knows how long that would have lasted if that had been in the middle of the season. But you have cases like that where it's like, just had injuries after injuries, but just stayed healthy for a year. Is he going to do it this year? I don't know. It's one of those tough things, but it seems to be like if you can get those 2 years in a row healthy, that you kind of get a reset on your health. The other thing is like the age will catch up with you. It's really tough to kind of be an older guy. Like you'll have the previous injuries, but it just rarely happens that you get someone that's in their 30s that haven't had an injury history, some kind of injury at some point.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I like some of these guys that you've got like an A grade on, but it's not like I'm just rushing out and drafting all these guys that I'm told by Jeff Zimmerman have a better chance of staying healthy because, like Logan Webb last year, he ended up being my SP1 in a league, I want to say, like a main event league. And you're just not going to cash in a main event league if Logan Webb's your SP1 in a year where he puts up a 1-2-3 whip. Like you need it to be one of those years where he's got the low whip, but when he's a pitch to contact guy, like you're going to run the risk of being up in the 1-2s there. So like, you kind of want a mixture of these guys, right? Like you're still shopping in the B's and the C's range, right?
Oh, 100%. Like you have to have good pitchers. It's kind of that combination of like, I want a good pitcher that'll throw a lot. And just off the list that you see that's provided there actually later in the book, like on page 110, if you have it, is the full list. You have guys that just missed it, like Bryce Miller. Take him in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
There's Cole Reagans is actually, since he's been healthy the last few years, is kind of a good option that way, where you can have that. Hunter Brown is a guy I like. I get attacked that he's been healthy here. Pablo Lopez kind of you have to kind of work your build around him, but he's been healthy. He stayed, been a decent option. So it's kind of like how you weigh it. And it might be coming down to where you have two guys with talent that are similar and you just kind of take the guy with the better health grade is the way a lot of times I look at it.
Right. Exactly. Like it's sort of, you don't want to just build your whole sort of plan around these health grades, but if you're deciding between one guy and one guy's got like a 64 and one guy's got an 82, then it's probably best to go that direction. So you covered the fastball velocity aspect of things. So let's look at these pitchers that have the F grade here. So actually I'll work up from the very bottom. So 36%, Jacob DeGrom. Jacob DeGrom with a worse health grade than Lance McCullers. Like that's
are right there. It's close.
It's really close, but Lance McCullers probably like the poster child for not being healthy. Johnny Cueto, John Means, Herman Marquez, Anthony DeSclafani, Wade Miley, Tyler Mahle, Robbie Ray, Cade Cavalli. With Cade Cavalli, you got a guy who basically did not come back from Tommy John surgery. So like he's part of like the 12% where just did not come back in time. Maybe doesn't come back at all to his normal self. Maybe he comes back as a reliever. But Robbie Ray at 54% there. He's the only player of these bottom 10 that I'm kind of willing to draft at cost this season. So certainly not a guy that I've crossed off because of this health grade, but how concerned are you about Robbie Ray sitting there with the F health grade?
He hasn't thrown a lot, but when he's out there, he's good. Even down there, with Lance McCullers, like he is the poster child, but like if he's healthy right now and he has been good, there's no way I would take him in like a draft champions, but he seems to be healthy like at this moment. So like in an OC, I could see myself even taking him in like the last round, see him if he can make it through spring training, and you might have a good pitcher. And if not, you didn't invest anything. I think that's kind of the key with a lot of these guys is these F grades. It's like, you're not really counting on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you find those right guys, that's like, oh, they got healthy, they made it through the year, great. But if not, you can just drop them right away. I think kind of the one I struggle with the most, he's a little bit further up. He's definitely got an F grade, is Yu Darvish. It's kind of like, we've all been there. It's like, oh, he's been great. He's looked good for like half a season, but then, you got to drop him, but he's going a little bit earlier than like the Lance McCullers or the Robbie Rays. So it's kind of like, how do you adjust for him?
Yeah. Darvish, I'm willing to draft too. He's cheaper than Ray, certainly. With Darvish, he's up over 130 innings 3 years prior to this last one. I don't know. What do you think he needs? Like 125 to be worth where he's going? Something like that?
That's what like I said, I drafted him. He's one that's kind of got that high health grade that it just seems to be good. Like, he's going to get hurt. I would kind of say the same with Clayton Kershaw, but we know when he's going to be hurt now. Like, he's out for 2 months. Like, we're not going to see him. So depending on your format with Kershaw, you really can't. I don't know if you could hold on to him that long, and who knows if it's going to be exactly 2 months. It might be longer than that. It'll take for him to come back, but at least he'll be sitting on your bench in like an NFBC format that way. But if you get like unlimited IL and in some other spots, he might be one you take in the last round, throw on your bench, and you get a pitcher later in the season.
So you're kind of, it sounded like you're sort of ambivalent on Robbie Ray there.
Yeah, I think he's fine to draft. I actually haven't got his exact ADP, but
I can get that way. Ray's going. He's going around 167 in online championships this month. So going after Pepio, Sandy Alcantara, Kikuchi, Reynaldo Lopez, ahead of Gaussman, Minaya, Christopher Sanchez. I mean, I'd probably take some of those guys maybe over Ray, but
I think that's where I'm standing too. Like, kind of looking at some of the guys going later, I know I have them above him.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Sanchez is definitely one.
Yeah.
That it's like, okay, I'm going to take him first. And it just kind of, maybe he just doesn't get drafted. And also around that 150 area is also kind of closer time. So it depends on where I am with that. There's a lot of closers thrown in right there. Yeah, there's just some ones like that with the ADP that are going later, but I don't think I have a problem drafting him. It's just, I think there's a few guys I'd like going later right now.
And this was another really interesting note that I saw in this updated version of the process. But you mentioned that spring training innings matter a ton. And I think this is something that we all kind of like are sort of aware of in our mind, like a pitcher who's making multiple starts in spring and going deeper each time out. Like, that's a good sign. But you've actually got data that suggests that it actually is very meaningful when a starter doesn't throw over 10 innings or preferably 15 innings during spring training.
Yeah, that was when I ran the health grades, someone pointed out that it was a big deal and I included it, and it's a huge deal. But the problem is, by the time I process, or like, we have to put out the information,
right,
we don't know what those innings are. So we have to pull them out and make grades without them. And it almost changes you a whole grade if you don't throw or not, or it can be even more than that. So and the one thing I tried to get a study with, if they didn't have a bunch of innings, but they did throw had a lot of innings the first month, or they threw the first month, did that matter? The innings that they didn't throw in spring training was more important, because I was kind of looking at guys like, they might have been on the backfields, like they were throwing back there, but it seems like those guys that were on the backfield were being babied for a reason. They were on the backfield because they weren't able to throw that much. They didn't go that far. So no, it can definitely change you like a whole grade, if not even more sometimes. But it just shows that you're healthy. Like, trying to get at least over 10, and kind of 13 was kind of what I found the magic number at. Was if you get over that number, just your health grades just skyrocket up.
Yeah, so one of the most important spring stats to track is just starting pitching innings thrown. So if you're sitting there at your draft in Vegas in late March, just keep a spring innings leaderboard handy and reference the great health grades available in the Process 2025 edition. Okay, we are going to head to a quick break. When we come back, I want to look at another study that's in this updated version of the Process that dives into some ADP changes as we shift later in the calendar. But first, I want to tell you about Fantrax, our sponsor for the spring podcasts. I love drafting on Fantrax. I'm actually in the Tout Wars draft and hold right now on Fantrax, and I'm in 2 other Dynasty slow first-year player drafts that are all happening on Fantrax. It's incredibly easy for me to hop from room to room and build up just deep queues full of prospects. Very easy to find players on Fantrax. There are other sites out there where you actually have to email your commissioner and say, I want to add this prospect because they're not available in the system. You don't have to do that on Fantrax. All the players are in there. Very easy to be a commissioner if you're playing your leagues on Fantrax, especially Dynasty leagues. Love playing Dynasty on Fantrax. So sign up for free today. Be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Simply go to fantrax.com/rotowire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/rotowire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. Have you ever had your debit card declined or had to call your bank at 3 a.m. in Vegas? Edge Boost is the first consumer-facing online bank dedicated to the gaming industry. There are numerous benefits to using Edge Boost: $250K per day in debit deposits, unlimited withdrawals, cash back on sports betting, DFS, sweeps, 100% approval for all gaming activity, financial segmentation for discretion and responsible gaming, compatible today for prediction markets, iCasino, DFS, sports betting, lottery, brick and mortar casinos, horse racing, and sweeps. No transaction reviews or account freezes. Visit edgeboost.bet today and use promo code ROTOPOD. That's promo code ROTOPOD. All right, Jeff, this second study that's available in the updated 2025 version of the process, written by you and Tanner Bell, is a study that our friend Jenny Butler did for you guys, where she looked at the ADP changes kind of as the calendar shifts. Like, everyone's doing their NFBC draft champions drafts basically from the moment the offseason begins, or even during the playoffs till, kind of January, February. Then there's this big rush of people doing the 12-team online championship leagues that are fab leagues. So there's different, roster construction dynamics to these 50-round draft and holds and the 12-team fab leagues. One of the big jumps, or one of the big ADP changes you see that Jenny notes, is the prospects see their ADP jump from where it is in the DCs to the OCs, at least the prospects that get taken in the OCs. And we know, like, everyone will tell you, like, in 12-team leagues, one of the big differences is you want to chase that upside, especially in your back half of your draft. You want to have players with a high ceiling there because you're going to cycle through those spots. But, like, historically, or even just I'm looking at this year specifically, but, like, are these prospects actually a good use of a pick in these 12-team online championships at their increased price?
Just looking at the historically, it's usually not, but I really don't have a problem doing it. I do think the best prospects aren't getting pushed up. Like, they're already still kind of going a little bit early, like the best options. So we kind of know who's going to play, but I don't have a problem. Like, most of these guys that she looked at in the book that took the big jump up, it's mainly because, like, they have to go by pick 360. That's the number of picks in it. So nothing beyond that. So if someone was going later than that and someone wants to take a chance, go ahead and just pick them up there. There was some decent options, like Nolan Chanuel. He ended up pitching quite well. If anyone held on to Dylan Cruz, that might have been worth it, but that'd been a long hold. Wilyer Abreu, that was actually a decent pickup. Mason Wynn was actually really good. So I think you're taking a chance, and if you miss, you just move on. I think that's one of the things with an OC is, if you're probably not dropping 4 guys every week, you're probably going to end up looking historically at the churn that's needed to win.
Right. Yeah, you definitely want to be cycling. You definitely want to be picking up guys as they are potentially breaking out. But yeah, I look at it's going to be tough to find value among the prospect pool in 2025. I think. I think it's not a good pool of prospects. And I think not every class of prospects is the same, but they often all get sort of treated the same by drafters, right? Like it's sort of like, I'm going to treat this, he's the number 2 prospect, and I'm going to take him here because I think he's going to be up this year. But like, I don't think like Dylan Cruz and Jason Dominguez are the top hitting prospects this year by ADP, but I don't view those guys as like in the class of like a Wyatt Langford or like a Jackson Churio from like a skills or upside standpoint. And then the guys that are going later than those guys are going later for a reason, but they're still getting drafted in the top, 300, 350, whatever. So I'm not a big fan of going prospect heavy in OCs this year, but there's certainly going to be some guys who pay off that strategy.
Yeah. The one I took in one, I've had 2 12-teamers so far, and I took Christian Campbell in one, which now I don't know what's going to happen with the Red Sox. He's one that where he went, I was just like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I can drop him because he fell quite a bit. I think I was like in the 20s, and I was just like, okay, we'll see how that goes. Like sometimes he'll get pushed up. There'll be someone. Yeah, I think there's going to be someone. The one that's kind of coming up just because the team keeps talking about him is Christian Moore with the Angels. It's just like the owner says he's going to play. Like I need to see what lineup they're going to throw out or everything, but he's one where it's just like the team is just like pointing, so many arrows, like we want this guy up and play. I mean, the Matt Shaw one's going to happen. Like, and kind of one thing, like, I deal with prospects a little bit different than some is like once they're up in the majors, like Cruz, it's kind of like he's just a major leaguer to me. Like we have the information. Like I know he's on MLB's or everyone's top 100 list because he's still got prospect status. But it's just like, well, he's up here. He's played. We all know what's going on. Like I was kind of guys like ended the season in the minors and then we'll be up or kind of like the prospects I'm looking at. Jordan Lawler's kind of in between, but he's kind of one where I'm still considering him a prospect. Like he didn't end the season in the majors. So I think like Bryce Eldridge, the Giants seem to want him to be up, but I think he's going to have to spend some time in the minors first. Spends a little bit of time in AAA before he gets up, but he might be one. Chase DeLauter from Cleveland. He's one. God, their outfield's so bad. I think they're going to give all their outfield a chance and be like, okay, you guys still suck. Let's bring DeLauter up. So he's one that I may, I might add now or draft and just give him a couple weeks to see what happens there. He's one that I kind of like. I said the other one is with the injuries that the Mets have, I think Brandon Sproat's in play right now. That he's one that I don't think that they were going to try to start his time. Like they'll see if everyone else is healthy, but everyone else isn't healthy. So I think there might be a quick churn there. Also on the pitching front, I actually think I like Bubba Shamler better than the guy that's, and then Jack. Job just hasn't been good and hasn't been kind of healthy. So hasn't had the ton of innings. Chandler had like 120 last year, so he probably could be pushing 150 this year. He's one that I just like better, but I don't know. Neither one right now aren't in the don't seem to be in the rotation, but they're like an injury away from being there. But I like Chandler just to be able to stay in the rotation all year. Kind of like has been a workhorse. He looks like he's ready to take that step that you could have him for the whole year. I'm kind of worried about Job getting hurt. And also he's not really striking any guys out in AAA. He's walking too many in AAA. There's just kind of a lot of questions with Job.
Yeah, I know we're not talking about auctions necessarily, but like of all those prospects you listed, Bubba Chandler's the only one I would buy in an auction. Just because I think he's got the combination of time in the majors that I anticipate in 2025 and a very high ceiling. Whereas I think, I think a lot of like Sproat, DeLauder, Christian Moore, Bryce Eldridge, like all very talented players. I don't think any of them are necessarily ready to make a major fantasy impact early this season. I would assume somebody I listed there will, but I just don't think it's a great bet. But I do love the Chandler call for the same reasons you do, like just the innings. How was he pitching towards the end of last season? Like he was going 5, 6, 7 innings every single time, tons of success at the highest level of the minors. And, Job had some outings where he was going 5 innings, but he didn't have as many as Chandler and certainly not as consistently and to the same level of success. And so like you look at that Pirates rotation, it's like Bailey Falter and Johan Oviedo are in the last 2 spots. Like I don't really care what the managers or general managers say, like going into camp, like Bubba Chandler can win one of those spots.
Yeah. One we missed, and it will depend on your league type and how everything is. So I think if you have IL spots, I think Andrew Painter might be a good one to start your season with and just move him to, depends if he's actually going to go on the IL or if they're just going to put him in the minors, but he's one to kind of keep track of if they do put him on like the 60-day IL or if he's on the IL, you can just kind of stash him there. And then when he comes back, I think he might be talented, but he's going to just be limited on how much he can throw.
Right. Yeah. So you're probably waiting. I don't know. I wouldn't think you're seeing Painter till at least June.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's one of those ones, like if you have the ability to stash, I was thinking like in Tout Wars, we have unlimited. A lot of times in the reserve rounds, I'm just like injured guys, throw them there and then pick new guys up. It's like, we'll get Kershaw, put him over here, just grab those guys that way. Just have know your league rules. NFBC, I'm not touching him.
Right. So another thing Jenny found, which kind of makes sense, catchers and multi-position players are going to go higher in your DCs than your OCs. Obviously 15 teams, you got to start 30 catchers versus 24 catchers in an OC. And you can't pick up players in the DC, so that makes sense. Also thought it was notable, like, so the SPs 1 through 50, they're already going high. They're very valuable commodities, but it was the SPs 50 to 100 who start going higher in these OCs than the DCs.
I think it's a round thing. I think it's a lot of the same people, and it's like, I have to get a pitcher in like the 7th round. But if you made it like a main event, it was like, well, that's actually like, a 5th round guy in a main event is like the 7th in an OC. I think that they probably should go later, but it's just kind of like, I have this many hitters, I need to start getting pitchers in an OC. And some of the worst ones get pushed up. Like they shouldn't be getting moved up. They're just not as good. Just grab someone later. There's actually a study Chris Towers did about a couple weeks ago, and he looked back at how good we were at drafting starting pitchers. And he basically found pitchers that went in the 4th round and the 10th round produced the same. There's no difference in the starting pitchers that we were able to draft that way. So it kind of got me thinking, it's like, well, if historically we're that way, maybe I'll just wait a little bit longer on pitching and just end up grabbing like 5 or 6 in a row later, but get a good hitting base to begin with.
Yeah. So in the Roto Ironlight Championship 12-team league, you need that crazy offensive base. Like, how you get it doesn't necessarily matter, but you have to have a dominant offense. So like what would you be comfortable with, like starting pitching wise? Kind of putting you on the spot here, but like, would you be willing to wait till like what round for like your SP3 or your SP4? Like how down in like the dumpster are you willing to be shopping for kind of the back half of your rotation in the 12-team league?
I think my third, if it was kind of where we were talking earlier, like the Mania, Chris Sanchez area. And in a 12, that would probably be like 13th or 14th. The other deal is I'm probably going to have to jump in once earlier. I hate grinding for two relievers.
Mm-hmm.
So I will jump in. I could see myself getting a closer first and then getting a starting pitcher. And it kind of seems like a lot of people are going this route. So at least in my one draft, it was like there was just a lot of pitchers pushed down. So even when I was able to jump in a little bit later, I was able to get some guys I really liked. Like I remember like in the 5th or 6th round, I got 2 of my top 10 guys. I'm like, this is fine. Like I didn't have to go early. I think really kind of look at the ADP and what's happening in those Cs. I think a lot of people are going to go the same route. So just be ready for it. Right. I think that's going to kind of be the key. But no, it's one of those deals like, I think in that one, I did take my closer first. And it was just like, okay, they're kind of going, and I don't want to be I've streamed off the wire for one, and in OC you can, but trying to get 2 of them, it's just so tough. And you're just falling behind at that point. So,
and it's really nice to have the one that's not only getting you the 30 plus saves, but doing a lot of that ratio work for you. Because like in the 12 teamers, especially once we get to like July, August, there's saves available on the wire, but they're not like good saves. Like they're from guys on bad teams or guys with bad skills. But if you have that one, top 5, top 6 closer to kind of get that stuff from all season, you can kind of make it work. And like what I've been kind of doing, and I'm doing my first OC tomorrow. Hopefully, join the Beat James Anderson OC tomorrow night.
Oh, I'm right in there. I'm getting there
now. But yeah, like in the DCs I've been doing, it's kind of like I am just gonna take a hitter unless it's just like obvious to me in the first 10 to 12 rounds. Like I got to take this pitcher here, but like I'm just defaulting to hitter. Oh, like I got to take this guy because he fell, or like, all right, the closer run's happening, I'm taking this guy. But yeah, that's a really good call. Like if you're jumping into your first OC and you've been doing some DCs, like you don't want to just take like what would be a good example, like taking like Corbin Burns at like the 2-3 turn or something like that. Like you just don't want to do that and then see like Cole Reagans go 2.5 rounds later. So just take hitters early is basically what I would say.
Yeah, you can, especially if you're in the middle and even at the ends of the 12 teamers. I love drafting in the middles of the 12 teamers. I know it's not great right at the beginning. Like a lot of people base it off that first 2 picks, but later on you just get those values that fall through and you can deal with the runs. You can kind of start a run. But I usually like with the middle, you don't start the run. You start seeing when the pitchers start going and you're like, okay, I need to grab one now. Like these are this little grouping I like, and I'll get my third guy out of it. I wouldn't jump stuff. Sometimes the values fall, and a lot of times the guys at the end have to do that. They're like, well, if I don't get a closer now and kind of looking at ADP, I may not. So they may start the run. But if you're in the middle, you can just kind of plink those guys off whenever the values come and wherever the runs are. But no, I love drafting the 12s. They're so much fun because it's like a lot better players. They move a little bit quicker, but it's going to be a little bit before I draft a little bit more.
Now, one thing I love about the NFBC is they've just got all these like unique different contests where like everyone knows about the main event and online championship and everything. But like I love doing, like I'm doing the 500, one of the 500 DC auctions this weekend. I think you've won. They do a $750 online championship that's live in Vegas that I've considered signing up for before, but I think you've won that league multiple times, right?
Yeah, the 2 times I've done it, I've won it. I love that league. I like the payout. It's a lot better. I didn't go to Vegas last year and I didn't do it. And this year it's like filled up already. And I'm maybe drafting during that time. It's one of those deals where it's just like, I have another kind of each day you have like there's 2 time slots for drafting. And I was trying to get 2 auctions in while I'm there. And a main event and a super. So I kind of have a busy weekend. So I didn't sign up for it initially, but if it kind of opens up, I told Greg I might jump back in. It's a tough league. Rob DiPietro was in it. And he's like, it's like, oh, these guys like care about this league. Like, sometimes when an OC, some people will jump out, but it's like, okay, we went to Vegas and we drafted a team. We're going to be trying. And I think that like the waiver wire was just nuts. And every year I've done the 12-team super, and it's the same way. It plays like a lot of times my main events and sometimes harder. Because, I mean, you got great players in there. It's just like you got John Posma just sitting in there just plinking guys off left and right. It's like these guys are going to drop $2,500 on a 12-team league. They're going to be sitting there and trying hard. So it's kind of a different thing. Like a lot of people like, oh, the OCs, and they're trying to look for the easy ones. But yeah, that 750 and those supers those are some tough leagues. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that's fun because I wasn't sure what the difference was going to be with like the 750, but that makes a lot of sense because like and I know there's people out there, there's like these tools where you can find like the weakest leagues and stuff. People spend time doing that with like OCs, but you'll find an OC where just, half the league's not making fab pickups by like Memorial Day. So yeah, that's a fun wrinkle that it's just a 6 months of competitive grinding from 12 really good managers in that 750 OC.
Yeah, the payout's a lot better on the top end because it's like 3 times what the other one is. It's like $4,300 instead of like $1,400 for like double the price. So it's a lot more money goes back in the league. So I don't think I've ever been competitive in the overall in it because you're just battling for that league money. And if you just, maybe it happens, someone can get that overall, but it's like the league's so tough that it's almost should be a standalone.
So Jeff, you obviously do the great mining the news column over at Fangraphs. And I wanted to talk about some of it just seems like a lot of my favorite pitchers that are in that sort of like 325 to 500 range. Like, I think they're good pitchers who would be productive in fantasy if they're in their team's rotation, but they're probably not in their team's rotation. So I just wanted to kind of run through some of these guys and see if any stand out as guys that you think will win a spot in the rotation. So we talked about Chandler and Job, Bubba Chandler, Jackson Job, Pirates and Tigers pitching prospects respectively. I mean, I think both of those guys theoretically could win a spot in camp. And we're just going to kind of have to wait and see how they pitch. Is that your read on that?
Yeah, that's how I am there. I think the deal is, I think Job, they really want to win it and are kind of like opening things up for him. But I just have my doubts that he's actually going to pitch good.
Right. Yeah, I'd definitely be monitoring Job's innings. Like, is he able to go from like 1 2/3 to 3 innings to 4 innings? Like, is that progression happening? What about Kumar Rocker with the Rangers? Like, I know that their projected rotation does not include Kumar Rocker, but when your projected rotation includes Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, John Gray, Tyler Mahle, Cody Bradford, like, do we think their actual rotation will include Kumar Rocker?
Rocker's one that's like, yes, I think it's going to eventually include him. I like Bradford a lot. He's one like later that I kind of target him. He's been pitching great. He's healthy out of that group. I think a lot of people think like Rocker's going to take it. I think it's Bradford's spot. Those 5 are it. We'll see what happens, but none of those guys have stayed healthy. I have no faith in Tyler Mahle, like none. So, no, I think Rocker's a great ad, especially in like DC's. Like he's going to throw this year, but right now it's not that way. But just give it a week. Like I just want to see when games actually start and we kind of even get more information on players being hurt. I think still stuff's kind of being hidden.
For anyone that cares, Eno and I have a dynasty team in a 20-team league, and he let me know we are not keeping Tyler Mahle. So that's relevant info. What about Ryan Nelson? Like, I think I have Ryan Nelson on a Gladiator team I drafted like at the beginning of Gladiator season. Like, I assume he's gonna be at around 150 innings this year, but what do you think? Is he at risk of opening the year at AAA?
The other one is Fott. But it's whoever out pitches on those two. I liked Fott.
It's just I think Fott's their third best pitcher.
According to projections, yes, but him and Nelson have options. No one else does. So
it's just Nelson is going to AAA, basically.
I don't think they're going to put him in the bullpen. I think you want him stretched out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's you're going to want him to go up, but if somehow he outpitches Fott, then he's probably got the job. If Fott doesn't look good, I kind of think it's a battle between those two, and I think that is Nelson going to outdo it? Probably a 33% chance. It's like Fott's probably going to be in the rotation, but he could just look horrible, and it could be Nelson. So I think that's one to kind of keep an eye on because, they're just the only ones with options. So I think they can move up. There's other pitchers in the minors that could go up, but out of the ones that they're considering right now and that have pitched in the majors, they're the only ones that. Diaz. I don't think Diaz. Nelson and Fott would probably have to go get hurt or have some struggling, but not just something to keep an eye on. I think that's. I don't think people are talking about it and drafting Fott like he's in the rotation, but he might not be.
So what about Ben Brown with the Cubs? Obviously, they've got a handful of guys who are sort of in the mix for that fifth starter spot. I think most people would agree Ben Brown is the only appealing one for fantasy. But what are his odds of actually winning that job to start the year?
I like 50-50. Assad isn't he hurt? Javier Assad?
I think he's a little banged up, yeah.
A little banged up.
I don't think you can draft Javier Assad for a variety of reasons.
Well, and he's the one that he's kind of fighting with. He's the other one with options. So I like Ben Brown. I just hope they don't move him to the bullpen. Like, I want to see him starting, and I might be a little bit higher on that. Just there's always been the talk, and a lot of people have been worried about it with his health and he might play up in the bullpen, but I think they need him almost as a starter. So I kind of like the idea of Brown taking over, and we'll probably know within a week or so how everything's going and if he can outpitch Assad. I think if Assad pitches okay, he may have it just kind of like he's been there before. That's always kind of a crappy reason. But there's also got Matthew Boyd ahead of him, which he's a week from heading from the IL.
Right.
Also, so
so Assad has an oblique strain, which he was diagnosed with the oblique strain February 11th or around there.
He's still dealing with it.
So he's just I just don't see any way Assad can win that fifth starter spot. He's just not going to have enough time, and he sucked basically after the first 6 weeks last year. I think Ben Brown is one of the very top names to watch in spring training because it does seem like there's a job there to win, and if he pitches up to his abilities, I think he can win it.
Yeah, another one to keep an eye on. I actually kind of like better than Assad, and is Cody Petit. I think that he has some interesting traits that if he ends up in that rotation some point during the season, I would roster him, maybe look to see what he's doing in AAA, and don't shy away from him, especially in a deeper league or any time that he's getting called up. You just have to kind of see what the Cubs are doing with him, and he's definitely got some interesting traits that could be a good part of the rotation. I don't know if I like Jordan Wicks. He's kind of a local guy, but I'm kind of biased, so I actually try to stay away. Just one of those ones where it's oh, I've seen him and it's great, and went to K-State, and I went to K-State, but it's I don't know if he's actually good.
I don't think there's a chapter in the process about that one. going after guys that went to your alma mater.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about Zebby Matthews? Like, I mean, I don't want to see any more Simeon Woods Richardson in that rotation. Chris Paddock, I mean, he's still kicking around, but like Zebby Matthews, like I think the hype was too high last year, certainly. But I mean, it seems like he could win a job, right?
I'm actually a little higher on Festa than him. I could see both of them. I don't know what everyone's love is with Woods Richardson. He's just not good. And
well, so I'm kind of assuming I'm sort of assuming. I guess I kind of maybe assume too much there. Like I like Festa more than Matthews too. I just think Festa is clearly better than Woods Richardson and Paddock, but I guess he's not guaranteed a spot.
Well, Russ, I've talked to Jason about this, and he's like, he has Woods Richardson up there for, I don't know why. Like, he's got him with a lot more innings, so his projections are looking better. If you go to the team website, they have Woods Richardson ahead of him, ahead of everyone. I don't know, and a lot of the writers, I don't know if they're looking at Fangraphs and saying Woods Richardson, but they keep putting him in the rotation. Maybe that's what Jason read. Maybe, I don't know if there's just like some circle of everyone just seeing him up there, but I don't believe that one at all. Paddock just needs to kind of stay healthy. I think he's going to get a shot. I don't even know if he has options to go down, but no, Zebby Matthews definitely, I think he's definitely the next one up. It's just when. But I do think like Festa, some places don't have him in that rotation. I think he's kind of the first one in, or he's already in. And then Matthews will be that way.
Yeah. So what's Festa's ADP? Festa's going around pick 300. There was one OC this month he did not get drafted in. But yeah, I would assume it's Festa and Zebby in the 4 or 5 spots by like May 1st. But I guess I don't know that for sure. What about you mentioned Brandon Sproat potentially with the Mets? You think Tyler McGill is one of their top 6 healthy arms at the moment?
Yeah, I think now he is. I think that here's another one. Mets writers and everyone is like already giving the Cy Young to Griffin Canning. Like Griffin Canning is bad. Like no one traded for him. Like they just gave him away. It's like they made it like a waiver wire trade where you just get like some random reliever from the minors.
Yeah.
It's like they have to make a trade to show that they got someone. Most of these guys are just literally they dropped them just for that reason. But I don't get why people think Canning is like good. But with the injury to Montas, I think McGill's in the rotation right now. He probably the 5th, and they've been talking about going with a 6-man rotation. So no, McGill's, I was kind of mad. I just missed him in a DC. I was having to deal with some, it was just a weird DC where pitching fell, but it fell because hitting was going weird times. But I think he's kind of a must roster at this point if they do that 6-day or 6-man rotation. I think the one thing that teams are going to go to a 6-man rotation, but it's more like a 6-day one. I mean, the Dodgers last year only 11 times went on 4 days rest. Paul Skeens never did. Like he always had 5 days rest. Like some teams do it, but they don't actually kind of announce it. They make sure that a lot of the players get rest they need and others don't. So kind of keep track of that. I think that they can, if you just play the normal 6, if you have just 6 games a week, you don't have a 7-day week, you can kind of just keep letting your guys get those 5 days of rest and not actually admit that you're on that rotation. But it's kind of like, oh, we have 7 days, and then your guy gets thrown in. Just kind of keep track of that, especially if you're kind of playing on some 2-start weeks. Kind of find those teams that are inclined to bring in a spot starter for a game or for a game just to keep everyone moved back, even though they're not officially have someone designated as a sixth starter.
Mm-hmm. So is that I think that's sort of, I think Phil Dussault came on the show a couple weeks ago and mentioned like what you were sort of saying, like the whole idea of 6-man rotations is kind of an overblown thing. I mean, obviously we want 2 start weeks from our good pitchers whenever we can get them. But the 2 start week is kind of, it's sort of a dying thing. But like,
I should have kept.
Go ahead.
I should have kept track who it was last year. Someone was supposed to have a 2 start week, and then like they got moved back off for something, and it was like a month before they finally got the 2 starts. Like they were throwing on Monday, and like they never threw like the last one, and it just kept working that way. And it's like, this is driving me nuts. And it's like I had a great matchup for the 2 start week, and now I got a tough 2 start week, against good good offensive teams, and I don't really want the 2 start week. But God, I wish I would remember who that was. But it just happens. You have to kind of keep track of those teams that are just not letting their guys go that 5th day. Like, oh, do you ever hear like, oh, someone they're bringing in a mystery starter, bringing a guy from AAA to push guys back or something? That's when you need to start paying attention to those teams.
So I think the drafting public has definitely decided that Luis Ortiz is in the Guardians rotation. And they've got a handful of interesting arms sort of on the periphery there that I'm interested in. I do not have any faith in Tristan McKenzie. I also think, I'm not drafting Ben Lively. I think Gavin Williams is an injury risk. So I think there's going to be starts available for all these guys, but do you think Ortiz is kind of in pen in that rotation? And then do you think a guy like Slade Ciccone or maybe Joey Cantillo could get into that mix if a guy like McKenzie can't quite get ready for opening day?
Yeah, Kenzie. I won't even draft him. Like I'd rather take on Slade in the DC, and he's going, so much later. I have no faith in like Logan Allen either. I kind of did, and it's just not there. I have no faith in Ben Lively. I think that there is some great chances for some of these guys to move in. Ben Lively just kind of had some ERA magic going on last year. I think that could just be a huge blow up, but it's like the team has to give him the chance. Like he performed last year. We're going to give you like 4 starts, and we'll see how those 4 starts go. I was talking about earlier, like stashing some rookies. Probably like the top stash right now is Shane Bieber. If you have any league with like I don't know if I would maybe in the main event. But
I thought about it.
Yeah. So no, he's the one. Like I said, if there's like that target that's like we're gonna draft him and hold. He's the guy to do it, and especially if you've got IL slots, like anything I know, Tout Wars is coming up and so forth. Like he's the one that, with those unlimited ones, like I think he's going to end up going in the auction part. Like
I guarantee he'll go in the AL labor auction that I'm in. But I think Bieber is one of my most rostered players this year. So I'm right there with you. Hoping for maybe 4 months. We'll see. But it's all been good reports on Bieber's recovery, and first time for him with Tommy John surgery. Was pitching, as good as he almost ever had before the injury last year. So I co-signed the Bieber idea. He is moving up though. I've noticed. He's kind of going around like pick 400 now in DCs. So. But yeah, I agree with you there. What do you think the Cardinals do at the back of their rotation? Because obviously Quinn Matthews is kind of the big name prospect. I really like Michael McCreevy if he can get into that rotation. But do you think they go with Andre Palante and Steven Matz if they're both healthy?
They sound like they're going with McCreevy and Palante. I think Matz is going to go into the bullpen. I think they're done with him. McGreevy, he's even going ahead of Plante in drafts. And I don't know if that's wrong. So I think Quinn Matthews will be up. The Cardinals will lose a ton of games if Michaelis ends up throwing like 175 innings. Like, he is done. That's the one where it's like, I know they've got to give him a chance. I know he's given them some great things, but if you go to his page and look at his release points from last year, they varied horizontally by 3 feet and vertically by 1 foot. He was all over the place. And he's supposed to be like this consistent pitcher, and he had like no consistency at all. None of his pitches, I don't even know if any of them had like an 8% swinging strike rate. He is just, he's done. I know they're going to give him a few shots to hope because he's like a Cardinal, but he's one that there's going to be a spot open up. So even if McCreevy or Plante already don't have one, I think that it will happen soon. There's just no way, if the Cardinals are serious about winning, that Michaelis is in that rotation for longer than a month.
Yeah, McCreevy's moving up too. I missed him in my most recent DC, but I think I have him in the other ones. But yeah, I mean, that's good to hear because I think McCreevy is one of their best pitchers, and sounds like they're really excited about him too. So yeah, I'm buying the idea of roughly drafting McCreevy right now as if he's in that rotation. What about Cade Povich in Baltimore? I'm not that high on Cade Povich. I've noticed some people that I think are smart are interested in Cade Povich. I'm not quite sure why, but like, he's got to wait his turn in that O's rotation, right?
It depends. Sugano can get sent to the minors. I didn't know that was like an option, but they keep saying they can. Might be part of his contract, but they may have like one like option with him. I've known some people have signed that, like, okay, we'll give you one down there. So maybe he's battling with Povich to start it. Povich made a few changes toward the end of the season, but I don't 100% buy it. I'm going to have to wait and see. Like, he's someone I'm watching because of those late changes. But otherwise, no, I can't get behind Povich. There's just so many other guys I like later that I would rather take a chance on. McCreevy, I'll take McCreevy over Povich in a heartbeat.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just one of those, like, especially like in an OC, we'll have to see how things kind of rattle out once more injuries start happening to the starters and pitchers get moved up. But it's like, I don't know if McCreevy's even going in OC or over Povich. And like, he's going like the 30th round of DCs. So yeah, Povich is just one that's probably in the periphery at this point right now. Someone I'm not interested in.
Yeah, this month McCreevy's gone in 2 of the 17 OCs and Povich has gone in 0.
Yeah.
So how about a local one for you? Noah Cameron, the Royals, a lefty, a true prospect by Jeff's definition, has not made his big league debut. But he was fantastic in the upper minors last year. I also really like Chris Bubich, who I think is probably in that rotation. But has there been buzz about Cameron potentially having a shot?
Yeah, the buzz is there, but I think they're going to give everyone else a shot first. I think Bubich has got it. I think Lynch is going to get a first shot at it. Marsh made some great changes, but he's hurt right now. Kyle Wright, I think he's just down on the pecking order right now. I don't think I would draft him even in a main event or anything. In a DC, I think it's fine. I actually did in one right after they traded Singer, but then they brought in it was before they had signed Lorenzen. Like, they're going to give Lorenzen a chance to fail. And once he fails, they'll move him to the bullpen.
Yep.
But he's got a shot at it. I think there's just some guys that they've talked about being ahead of him in the pecking order. If injuries happen, he'll be there. I think we'll see him pitch this year. It's just not going to be right away. It's going to be one of those ones where we'll end up spending $200 of fab if it happens. Well, we still have $200 of fab, like in this first 2 or 3 months. Otherwise, he might come in later and people can get him for like $5. Just kind of, it seems to be like right after the All-Star game, it's just like everyone kind of looks at their fab like, oh, I have to kind of watch things the rest of the year.
Jeff, I got Paul Sporer texted the answer to the pitcher that kept getting his 2-start week pushed back, Reynaldo Lopez.
Oh, was it?
Does that sound right?
I had him in several leagues, so that easily could have been him. Like I said, it doesn't ring a bell. Like I said, I should have written it at the time, but God, it was just like, I just remember I was just completely annoyed by it.
Well, thanks, Paul, for helping us out there. Just a couple more questions, Jeff, and I'll get you out of here. So the Dodgers bullpen, the Red Sox bullpen, I'd even maybe throw in like the Tigers bullpen, just a few of the ones that I'm just kind of staying away from, at least the top guy by ADP in, because they seem pretty messy to me. What do you think about those ones, like especially the Dodgers and the Red Sox, in terms of where the news is pointing and how much you buy that? And then also just what do you think is going to happen with the 9th inning in Texas?
All right. Starting with the Dodgers, I'm going to go with what the team says, Scott. I also think this team, those guys aren't going to throw a ton. I mean, like they historically haven't. So I think there's going to be times where it's like Yates or someone else or Trinan. It's going to be like someone went and Yates and Scott went and Scott got the save, but they've thrown like 2 days in a row or 2 out of 3. And then Trinan gets a save, and then like same thing happens later in the week. Trinan gets a save, so then we're all bid on Trinan. I think I actually look to see what happens, but I'm kind of worried that bullpen's just going to get. They're going to be throwing a bunch, so there's going to be saves all over the place. But kind of look to see who's healthy, or who they're actually using when they're rested as their actual closer. I think that's going to be one thing with them. I think they have really good arms in that bullpen. So it's going to be a mess. It's one I'm going to maybe stay away from unless I can pick up like, I don't even know if I don't think Trinan's going to be it. I was trying to think of someone late I think you said the Red Sox. I think if Hendricks can throw, it's him.
Yeah.
If he can throw, they're going to give him the chance. They may swap him and Chapman around. So Chapman may end up with, I like Chapman in like a DC. Like he's going to get 10 saves this year, maybe 8 to 12, somewhere around there. I think that just they'll have him throw against some lefties at the end. So I think that he's fine in like a DC, but it just doesn't move the needle in an OC and even a main event. I really like Slayton coming into the offseason, but I just think he's behind those two right now. He's great, a great pitcher. Everyone, he could be the closer of the future, but he's not right now. Like he's going to have a couple injuries for him to have that job. He can move in with like Chapman if Hendricks gets hurt or so forth. Like he can move up, but I don't think he's got it. The Rangers was one.
Yeah.
That's a mess.
Yeah.
That's an ugly bullpen. And like everyone's hurt.
Like, what are they doing? There has to be like a thought process behind it.
I have no idea.
They're a good team on paper. Like they should have a good bullpen.
I don't know if they think they can just trade for one later. It's
like, do they think that like Emiliano Teodo, like a prospect, is the guy? Like, do they think like are they kind of like slow playing this John Gray idea and like they're gonna turn to that? Like I felt like they were going to be the team that signed Kenley Jansen or Carlos Estevez, and then they didn't.
I know. I keep putting David Robertson in with someone.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's just like, it's just horrible. Like I don't even know half these guys that are going to be back there, and like their top end's not good, and right now they're hurt, and I don't know. I'm just staying away. The one I would take a chance on, depending on what his ADP is Chris Martin, because he looks like it. But he'll have to be at that one where you don't feel like you have to keep him. Like you just drop him after a week. Yep. Like there is nothing. I think he's going that late in like OCs that you can do that. But yeah, just try to stay away. With the Tigers, I don't know. I've kind of been on the Holton train, but I don't like that. They really haven't said anything. I don't have a good read on it. A lot of people like Will Vest. I can see it. I think this is another one where if you're kind of shaky at closer, it's just take a dart at one and you may win. If not, you drop them in a redraft. Just between like Brisky, Foley, Holton, and Vest. Maybe even Tommy. I always can't pronounce his last name.
Tommy Canley.
Yeah, Canley. Maybe one of those, but just know that you're just grinding that spot. It's you're dropping it right away, or you could hit on it. It's you got a 25% chance, and a lot of times that's all you kind of need. If you can hit on that, you might be a league winner, or it could just be you pick someone else up.
I think if you just told me like I have to start one Tigers reliever all year, it would be Tyler Holton, but I wouldn't want to start a Tigers reliever all year.
Yeah, exactly. Like none of these guys like even have a strikeout per a K rate over 10, like as a relievers. Like Holton's this like wins and saves machine, but he's not a strikeouts guy. He just gets a bunch of innings. And then Foley ranked 150th of 169 qualified relievers in strikeouts last year. So yeah, it's
and like Foley, I'm sure Paul could give us a full breakdown of why this happened, but 22 of Foley's 28 saves happened either in April or from mid-August on. So from like May through mid-August, Foley got you 6 saves and probably like 12 strikeouts. So final question, Jeff.
Okay, I'll say two arms in that bullpen or in that whole team. I like the talent of Brant Herter and Ty Madden made some late changes. I could see them move into the rotation or closing right now, but they're not there. Just if the season you start seeing them move up, those are two guys that have made some late season changes that made them look good. And I have no problems with their talent. That just the roles aren't there right now.
So Jeff, when I release my super early top 300 redraft rankings every year, I release them during the playoffs because I do it like we do this too early meatball thing with Rob, and I have to do a bunch of prep for that. So I just released my early top 300, and you sent me a message after I released that this fall about just basically you weren't very happy with me about including Dalton Rushing of the Dodgers on my top 300 because it was early in the off season, and it's just kind of like, why are you going to drive the price up this high on this guy that we all really like? But now, we're pitchers and catchers have reported, and the Dodgers have added like 3 or 4 outfielders since then. So what do you think they're going to do with Dalton Rushing this year?
Someone just wrote an article. I haven't read it yet. It's part of Minding the News. I kind of like look at the titles. It's like these like poor prospects with the Dodgers, like they have no chance to move up. And the deal is like I'm trying to think of like the level of talent some team would pay for Rushing. But it's like the Dodgers just have this like amazing catcher in AAA, and they're probably like, oh, this is fine. We don't need anything right now. Maybe we could trade later for him, but Will Smith is a little bit banged up. Austin Barnes isn't great, but there's nothing more really Rushing needs to do in the minors. It's just he hits for average. He hits for power. I mean, he doesn't steal. His plate discipline's great. Walks a ton. Doesn't strike out some. Like he needs to be in the majors. We could have him.
I don't even think it's that crazy to think that he's fairly close to Will Smith, if not arguably like right there with him. Like it might not be this year, but like he might be a better option than Will Smith as early as next year.
Yeah, that's what I don't get. It's like maybe they'll bring him up. I know they like those two, and they've been that way forever. But once he couldn't get into the outfield, I mean, there was some talk of that early on. Like, he was going to play outfield and be the backup catcher, which would be great. But until that happens, like, he's also going to be someone, like, if he comes up as the catcher, or I don't know if people will pay a lot for him. It depends what his playing time will be. But there's always someone desperate for catchers. So those, like, 3 guys in your league will be paying up for him that have some horrible catcher, and especially in, like, the main events. But it's just really disappointing. Like, the deal is like, the Dodgers don't need a trade for anything. Like, everything is great. It's like, we have 1,000, maybe a healthy starter, but it's like, we've got 10 starters. We've got a great bullpen. We've got Andy Podge can't even find a spot in the outfield right now. And I think he's possibly one of their better options. It's like, it's just ridiculous where they're standing, because they can go get anything they want. Like, they have this great trade chip that someone will give them a 1-year rental on some starter, and that everyone can understand it. Like, they're going to get, if they need to, they can get whatever they want. So God bless the Dodgers. Like, every time I look at them, it's just like, yeah, this is what a smart team with a lot of money can do. This is what the Yankees, this is what all those teams could do. And the Dodgers have figured it out.
Well, Jeff, very good stuff. Why don't you let the people know one more time where they can go grab the Process, the 2025 edition?
Yeah, it's we have 2 editions. The digital one you have to get at thefantasyprocess.com, and then the paperback is on Amazon. So yeah, they're just both available there. And we have the full edition, which hasn't changed for a couple of years, that you can get it and the appendix, or you can just get the appendix edition, which costs you a little bit less, pretty much like the size of a magazine. 100 and some pages on it, and it's all the studies we've included. There's some great ones. Roger Strong.
We covered 2 studies, but that's like less than 10% of the studies that are in there. So
yeah, and it was the one by Roger Strong on, like, drafting, like, people reaching, was great. There's some other great ones on stashing players. Really, the correct answer is don't. But if you want to know why, that people went through that. So there's so much, like, it's just, and if you have questions, like I said, we paid for people to do them. Like, we just took the questions we had and tried to answer them. So that's what we have in there. So no, and you can see the full list of all the studies we did and the other information we provide. We also provide all the standing gains points formulas and previous league standings. So if people need to value their players for auctions and drafts, we have that information available also in there.
Awesome stuff, Jeff. Well, really appreciate it. And thank you to Tanner Bell too, who's not here, but for all the great work he did with the Process. And this has been the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by Fantrax. I'll be back again with another episode next Wednesday.